For supporting the next person by you, because if I'm in competition with you, I should seek for a way to crush you so I can make success of what we are all running for.
In what ways can organizations enhance the recruitment, placement, and retention of volunteers and even encourage new ones to sign up?
If you take, for instance, take some international reality programs where people come out and they win 50 million, 60 million, and then you go to schools where people come out with first class and they don't get as much as even 20,000 naira as a reward system. What is government doing to give back to the people, to give back to society, to support? So with regards to philanthropy, and I also think that we have certain specialized systems where government gives back, like drug revolving schemes, like scholarships and all, but it should be scaled up. And it should be meant to encourage dignity in labor. It should be to encourage people who are transparent, who are honest in government. It should be made to also encourage people who are poor. So if I'm able to win 20 million naira by participating in a reality show, I should be able to win 10 million naira for being transparent. I should be able to get some reward system. What do you get at the National Merit Award? A gold plaque and maybe a handshake. If you are so honored by your nation, there should be some form of reward also that says, thank you for being a good man, for being a good man for this country.
Philanthropy and volunteerism have long been important elements of the health system through building hospitals, mission houses, providing food for those that need it the most. This approach has been instrumental in such areas as improved medical care, immunization in underdeveloped countries, global health strategies, and maternal and child health services. Former U.S. President Bill Clinton, Microsoft's Bill Gates, and the Rotary Club International have been major contributors towards funding and promotion of the global campaign to eradicate polymyelitis, which, thanks to their efforts, has been successfully eradicated in Nigeria.
I will advise people to de-emphasize selfishness, to remain selfless, because when we answer the call of nature, you will be remembered by what you did, who did you influence, of what impact did you create in people. And so if people de-emphasize greed, selfishness, and place patriotism on national interests above any other interest, we will go far.
Many developing countries, including Nigeria, have continued to be recipients of philanthropic gestures from other climes. The question is, are these nations going to remain receivers and not graduate to become givers?
Nigeria can give out if we set our priorities right. We are not a poor nation. We are just a set of mentally poor people.
Why is giving in Nigeria becoming limited to politicians during political campaigns alone?
What we have come to learn more practically is where you volunteer for a service. And I think that's lacking because a lot of our young people are in a hurry to succeed, in a hurry to make it. So they don't want to wait, they don't want to burn their fingers, they don't want to just learn from the ropes. The end result is too quick outside. That's what they're looking forward to. So I'm looking at also the place of mentorship and older people willing even to take on younger people to teach them what they need to learn. So on both sides of the stick, there's a problem. There's a problem with the older people who are also impatient with young people and not trusting young people enough to want to allow them to learn and grow with the ropes. And the younger people on their own are also in a hurry to succeed, not willing to go through the whole hog. So we need to reenact that.
Nigeria as a nation has continued to be a trailblazer in Africa, but experts says as individuals, communities and religious bodies do their part, more can still be done to inculcate the virtues of volunteerism and philanthropy in the country. Many say philanthropy and volunteerism are lovely ideas until such services are demanded of them. Then excuses pop up like, I am busy, my schedule is tight, and other similar excuses. Now, why is volunteerism not embedded in our national or even individual agenda? Well, it seems all hope is not lost. A next report by Alika Opanachi Arua has identified NGOs and some individuals giving out of their limited resources. You can call them the game changers if you like. How can society emulate them? Let's allow Alika to enlighten us more.
Volunteerism is the art of donating time, energy, knowledge, and skills for the benefit of other people in the community as a social responsibility and not for any financial benefit or remuneration. The success of any nation is said to depend on the involvement of young adults in socio-economic development. Volunteers, especially at a period like this, when coronavirus pandemic is fueling youth unemployment, is needed.
Volunteers have been assisting vulnerable groups, correcting misinformation, educating children, providing essential services to the elderly, and supporting frontline health workers. As we gradually recover from the pandemic, volunteers will have a key role to play in accelerating the transition to green, inclusive, and just economies. Indeed, volunteering is the backbone of our societies. Volunteers deserve our heartfelt thanks.
Volunteering is already playing a role in our response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Right from last year, we did not have adequate numbers of people that would do each and every activity, play each and every role. So a lot of volunteers came in and they were brought on board. In much the same way, just like we've done with the polio eradication program, we're going to be using a lot of volunteers, people who are community-based, people who will engage with community members, who will convince community members in terms of taking the vaccines, in terms of knowing where to access the vaccines. So volunteerism is very huge, and we'll continue to support all of those organizations, community-based organizations, non-governmental organizations that help bring volunteers into the mix of all the work that government is doing.
For the youth and other members of the society, volunteering offers opportunities for self-development and provides experience and valuable ground in the practice of citizenship. With the right education for all the citizens, the large expanded youth population, experts says, could provide a continuous growth and thus sustainable development.
Two things seems to be responsible for the downplaying of such wonderful gesture. And let me start by saying that presently we are in an era that personal interests have been so much magnified more than the national interest, which is also as a result of leadership that has made personal interest more than the interest of the led. So it's a symbiotic frustration from the leaders and from the led. But because I remember 1999, if I'm not mistaken, this what you call today civil defense started as volunteers. And you see people trekking from here to Jabi, those in the village trekking from just a reasonable distance. And when they get to the place, maybe as an NCE holder or as a graduate, the person will be sweeping the market, not knowing that there is a package awaiting them right inside that service, that volunteered service, until eventually the government opened it up. Today, you and I know how people are scrambling to get employed into that very system or the organization. Then coming to the area of such life getting out entirely out of our system is quite disheartening, that from age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 coming up, somebody is already interested on his own. It's really very, very unfortunate that even the elders in the village cannot help the matter. And it's a boiled down to personality, selfish interest. And I tell you that the only way we can get it right is let the leaders show us the example.
I look at it as a service that is offered at will, where you ask people, this is what you want to do, and you solicit people's attention to do that. Now, in doing it, the person providing the services will be excited. But the challenge is that at the background, this man is not happy with himself. He's hungry. He wants to get something for the day. And then asking him to volunteer without a reward, a compensation, he will be reluctant. He will better engage his time in doing something that is more profiting than volunteering, and then the services will not be paid for. So if somebody should advocate for volunteers, is there a backup? Is there something you fall back to after doing the service for the day? Volunteering is a service. It must be paid for and adequately, no matter how little.
Over the years, the non-profit sector in Nigeria has been increasingly active in charitable causes, which have progressed from individual charitable acts of helping the poor to more organized philanthropy, such as corporate social responsibility. While some are motivated by deep interest in solving societal problems, especially in alleviating poverty and the provision of free education and healthcare, others are creating a family legacy in philanthropic giving. Rotarian Abdullahi Idris is of the opinion that contribution of volunteerism to development is immeasurable in sustaining livelihoods and value base for the well-being of the people.
My experiences have been both ways, both good and bad. I will start with the good, in the sense that it's something I started from when I was younger, higher institution, and because then the environment I found myself, I sort of had people who we had like minds. Like minds in the sense that we see something wrong, we come together and say, look, we need to do something to change it. Giving somebody 10 minutes can mean a lot to that person. It could be at a point that person might be gasping for breath, and mere stepping up, giving that person a CPR can go a long way in ensuring that person is alive. It could be situations where you have a car accident. Mere stopping and giving assistance to getting whoever is injured out of the vehicle can be a cause to make that person be alive. So the sad thing about our society today is we have people that their hearts have become hardened. Let me use that word. Hardened in the sense that they do not see the need to sacrifice whatever they have, no matter how little it is, to see they assist someone else, even if that is the last thing they have. It so happens in society today is we have people who step up to do certain things, not because they have it all, but from the little they have, they can give a substantial quantity to at least help someone, step up from wherever they are.
With these views, advocacy groups feel volunteer groups should be formed at the primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions as means of promoting sustainable development.
Volunteerism, to me, is a manifestation of patriotism, selflessness, love of others, which has not totally disappeared from our society, Nigeria. It may be low-key, and it varies in degrees from country to country. Some leaders, they extol the virtues of volunteerism. You remember John F. Kennedy once said that don't ask of what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. That is trying to propagate the spirit of volunteerism. And our leaders, even our national symbols, do encourage the virtues of volunteerism. For instance, when you are teaching children about the national anthem, the coat of arms, this national pledge, there are certain concepts therein that you can use to promote the spirit of volunteerism. And you can lead the children by example. You as a teacher, you get involved in some activities beyond your normal official duties. You come around them when they are playing games to offer one advice or the other, to offer some techniques. By so doing, they imbibe unconsciously that spirit of volunteerism.
They also want the mass media to promote success stories of volunteer efforts.
Even me, I'm part of so many organizations that we do for free. And for the past 5 years, I think I'll be part of such organization and will be helping our community as well. So, and we don't ask for anything in return. We just do it freely. And I believe that we'll have so many youth like that they are ready to render their selflessness to help our community grow.
Public affairs analyst Jide Ojo notes that the desire to help others or contribute to the society has been an essential aspect of human nature. He attributes the vanishing culture of volunteerism in Nigeria to loss in family values and culture.
When you look at the Western world, they have this culture of volunteerism ingrained in them. Ingrained in the sense that, look at even the blood donation. People donate blood freely abroad. Here, people sell their blood. People will go to hospital to donate blood, but with the expectation that they must be paid for this blood, because in their own belief, they can also, the hospitals will also make money out of it. In addition, look at many of our feeder roads, many of our community roads. In days gone by, it used to be the community that would do the roads. They don't wait for government to come and fix feeder roads to people's homes and all of that. And that's how society can get better.
Analysts stress that promoting volunteerism among citizens, especially the youths, is one of the basic ways of empowering them economically, socially, and psychologically. Stakeholders in volunteerism says moving the country forward requires the collective effort of all, hence the need for individual contribution to nation building.
I think we have something like we call community service. People want to support any activity that will help in developing their communities, assisting your neighbors. And those days, I think child grooming is a function of, I think, community. Community come together to help in training a child. Then when you see any child that is misbehaving within your neighborhood, you try to correct the child.
Some are of the opinion that institutionalizing volunteerism in Nigeria and sensitizing the public on the benefit of voluntary services to the nation will help in promoting the spirit of volunteerism in the country. Others, on the other hand, says through exemplary acts of volunteerism from parents and guardians, children will learn to imbibe the art of volunteerism right from the childhood.
Now, if we only volunteer and give in our religious institutions, our services to humanity is still limited and wanting. Why don't we take it further to give beyond our families and friends to that stranger in need? In a world where you can be anything, it doesn't cost anything to be kind to one another. Thank you so much for watching. We hope we have inspired you to do more for those around you. I'm Lydia Sampson. See you next time.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
Akili, 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 akili. Will you wash your hands with me? I want to wash my hands with you. Come on, I will show you what to do. Wash your hands in clean water. Wash your hands, wet them with the water. Wash your hands, now add some soap. Scrub your hands in the soap and water. Scrub above and below between the fingers too. Scrub under your nails and scrub-a-dub-a-doo. Rinse your hands in water. Rinse them clean, rinse away the soap. Dry your hands and go.
Akili, why do we wash our hands?
To wash away the germs.
Akili, what are germs?
They're like tiny little bugs make you sick.
But I don't see any germs on my hand.
That's because they're so tiny that you can't even see them.
Oh, wow. I want to wash the germs away. Will you wash your hands with me, Achille?
Of course. Wash your hands in clean water. Wash your hands, wet them with the water. Wash your hands, now add some soap. Scrub your hands in the soap and water. Scrub above and below between the fingers too. Scrub under your nails and scrub-a-dub-a-doo. Rinse your hands in water. Rinse them clean, rinse away the soap. Dry your hands and go. Great job, Haruma! Can you tell me the 4 things we did to wash our hands?
I can try.
1.
Wash our hands with water.
2.
Put soap on our hands.
3.
Scrub our hands all over.
4.
Rinse our hands clean with water.
That's right! You got it! Wash your hands, wash the germs away.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at
Mr. President has decided that the present IGP, Mohammed Adamu, will continue to serve as the IG for the next 3 months.
President Buhari extends tenure of IG of Police, Mohammed Adamu, by 3 months.
President Buhari nominates immediate past service chiefs as non-career ambassadors.
Federal government builds National Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center for Young Innovators.
Today on Good Morning Nigeria, we shall be looking at issues surrounding clinical depression in Nigeria and its management.
Now, depression is one of the most common mental disorders worldwide. The symptoms for depression can vary greatly from one person to another.
Now, the symptoms, according to experts, generally include mood swings, problems with sleeping or eating, and a general loss of interest in life. In some cases, suicidal thoughts creeping and more.
Well, that's right, Kinsley. It also leads to impairment of an individual's ability to function and carry out everyday tasks and, of course, responsibilities. Globally, more than 322 million people are suffering from depression, according to a survey by World Health Organization in 2017.
And Kieran, with the emergence of the coronavirus pandemic and the attendant consequences on the global economy, you can be sure that the figure of persons suffering from depression could be a lot higher now around the world.
Yeah, very true indeed. And here in Nigeria, depression is more common than we think. It is a significant public health problem and at a prevalence rate of 3.9%. Studies also show that more than 7 million Nigerians currently suffer from depression.
Now, what are the issues usually associated with depression, and what are the challenges faced in seeking and utilizing mental health services?
Now, another pertinent question is how capable or knowledgeable are health practitioners, more so the health sector, in tackling Nigerians who have depression? Do we have enough trained doctors on mental health? Let's just say psychiatrists.
And psychologists, of course. That's right. So we're going to have them in our conversation segment on the program. So those issues and more we intend to discuss as we address the challenges and solutions, as it were, to the issue of clinical depression, which is a real problem that needs attention. On the program, we'll also have a playback of part of the conversation we had with the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, on Wednesday this week, and that was on Transparency International's report on Nigeria and some pertinent matters that arose from that conversation. It's on that note that I'd like to welcome you to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I thank you for joining us.
And I am Kirian Umayo, welcoming you to Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the NTA. As usual, we have our complimentary segments, which will include the newspaper review, business news, and others. For now, let's join Chimaobi Water Naji for the morning news. Good morning, Chimaobi.
Hello, good morning, Kirian and Kingsley. It's good to be with you this morning. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved a 3-month extension of tenure for the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu. The Minister of Police Affairs, Muhammad Megari Dingyadi, announced this while briefing journalists after an audience with the President.
Mr. President has decided that the present IGP, Muhammad Adamu, will continue to serve as the IG for the next 3 months to allow for a robust and efficient process of appointing a new IG. I think this is not unconnected with the desire of Mr. President to not only have a smooth handover, but to also ensure that right officer is being appointed into that position.
The minister used the opportunity to respond to reports on the social media on the appointment of the new Inspector General of Police.
It's one of those social media stories that one cannot control. And I think from what I've told you now, you can classify that information appropriately.
In the meantime, President Muhammadu Buhari has forwarded the names of the immediate past service chiefs to the Senate as non-career ambassadors designate in a letter to Senator Ahmed Lawan. Ibrahim Lawan, President of the Senate, the President said in accordance with Section 171, subsection 1(2)(c) and subsection 4 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended, he has the honor to forward for confirmation by the Senate the underlisted 5 names of nominees as non-career ambassadors designate, end of quote. These names are General Abayomi Olonishaki, Lieutenant General Tukari Buratai, Vice Admiral Ibok Eteibas, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, and Air Vice Marshal Mohammed Usman. The President is urging the Senate to give expeditious consideration to the nominations. There has been a significant reduction of gas flaring in Nigeria in the last couple of years, down to about 12% from 65%. The House of Representatives Committee on Gas Resources, during an interactive session with Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas, suggested that more opportunities be created as byproducts can be reused in other industries.
Resources is committed to supporting initiatives that will aid to accelerate investments in the production and processing gas with a view to consolidating Nigeria's gas export opportunities and, more importantly, to enhance massive gas penetration and utilization of the domestic market.
It's easy to see how
competition has come in, supply is growing, and the market is moving.
And away from the National Assembly, where imagine having an innovative ecosystem where young innovators and startups can work, play, and learn how to create indigenous technologies. Well, the federal government, through the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy, is about to make that imagination a reality with the building of a National Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center.
Innovation and digital entrepreneurship. These are the two prerequisites of building an indigenous digital economy. Without promoting our indigenous digital innovation on one hand, and also promoting our indigenous digital entrepreneurship.
And for us to create and get value in digital economy, we need to promote innovation and entrepreneurship in the digital space.
Now for some health stories, where 1,340 new cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed in Nigeria in the last 24 hours, spread across 21 states and the FCT. In the new figures released by the NCDC, the FCT tops the list with 320 new infections, followed by Lagos with 275, then Rivers State with 117 cases. Others are 100 in Oyo, 57 in Akwa Ibom, 51 in Ogun, 48 in Ebonyi, while Benue has 44, Adamawa State recorded 42 cases, Imo 38, Kwara has 35, Gombe has 32, Kaduna has 31, while Osun and Edo states posted 29 cases each. The tally is completed by Kano with 24 cases, Ekiti with 15, Katsina with 14, 13 each for Delta and Nasarawa, while 10 for Jigawa and 3 cases for Sokoto. Nigeria now has 136,030 confirmed cases, out of which 110,449 were treated and discharged, and an unfortunate 1,632 deaths have been recorded. And that concludes the morning news highlights. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Kingsley and Kirian just after the break. To stay with us.
My dear party members, there comes a time when all good people must not only speak, but rise up and get involved in the task of improving their society. The need has never been greater than now for all Nigerians to actively contribute to the all-important task of nation building by bringing about good leadership and governance. For most citizens, their greatest weapon is their vote. Register now for your party and register when the time comes for elections. Political parties are the main vehicles under our laws through which citizens can participate in the ideals and practices of our democracy. As we have seen happening around the world, good citizens join political parties and use them to bring about the changes they desire. I am therefore endorsing the nationwide membership registration and the revalidation exercise embarked upon by our party, the All Progressive Congress. I call on patriotic Nigerians to come out during the exercise, which starts on the 26th of January, and avail themselves of the opportunity to join the APC. Thank you, and may God bless our country.
Fellow Nigerians, the opportunity we've been waiting for is here. The ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, has commenced membership registration and revalidation exercise.
This is why the chairman, APC Mobilization and Sensitization Committee for Youth, Women and People Living with Disabilities, His Excellency Alhaji Yahaya Bello, the Executive Governor of Kogi State, is calling on all Nigerians, especially youth, the Sorosoke generation, to register and join the APC in the party's membership registration and revalidation exercise that has already commenced.
The exercise is currently ongoing at all polling units across the country, beginning from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. daily.
For more information, visit our website at www.officialapc.org.
APC is the only party that offers Nigerian youths the best political platform to achieve their dreams of a prosperous nation.
Join us to move Nigeria forward.
I am Governor Abelo of Kogi State, Chairman, Youths, Women and People Living with Disabilities Mobilization and Sensitization Committee of the APC Membership Registration and Revalidation Exercise 2021, and I approve this message.
I bring you wonderful news. The village headmaster is coming back to your screen.
Teacher, I fell one country. Teacher, I fell one country. Omoni resiti me.
Ajebo na better school for last giddy. Not be all this on a rugged yes school for Ijabi. I don't know for you.
Second, it's called Oja Village. Kadesi. We know happy at all.
And I know that even you too, you are getting a lot of orders. Hey, we are trying, Shao. Sweep her leg out. She was standing there. Sweep it.
I love you so much.
And how did I give you the impression that I was interested in that position?
50-year anniversary.
You mean anniversary?
I mean, that is why I talk with that now.
Not for me. Not for me because of Pamio.
Arsenal seek revenge against Aston Villa after their loss to their opponents at the Emirates Stadium last time out. Will they succeed, or will Villa do the double over the Gunners this season? Find out this Saturday when Aston Villa welcome Arsenal to Villa Park on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Babai Jebu, Lipton, and Close Up in association with Gold.com.
You are watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Focus on value addition and development of local raw materials sector as we join Chimobi Watanaji once more on business news.
As the global community gradually opens their shores to commercial activities after months of complete lockdown, entrepreneurs in Nigeria are encouraged to pay premium attention to local needs and adjust their operations to suit their immediate environment. By these, stakeholders expect the commercial arena in Nigeria to encourage investments in locally sourced raw materials, thereby promoting indigenous brands. This is against the backdrop of the fact that the global pandemic has opened up a lot of new ideas in the way things are done.
I'll quickly advise every other businessman to change his business strategies, to begin to invest in the people, things around him.
Not a lot of business that shuts down due to the inavailability of foreign imports. So in terms of such businesses, where it has to do with trade business, I will advise that those branding companies should look at local brands.
So before those changes and the inconsistency we set in, you will have been able to put them on paper, craft them out, analyze them on a regular basis. Also, attitude is very important. A successful entrepreneur must be an individual who is resolute.
Really collapse a lot of businesses, companies, and what have you. That's why you see things are so difficult. A lot of people are trying to come up, are trying to thrive.
And now to the capital market, where the bullish nature of the market in recent times could not be sustained Thursday as the market closed bearish, shedding 0.51% after taking on an all-share index of 41,785.80 basis points. With business news, I'm Chimubi Walter Naji.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channels at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We thank our colleague Chimubi Walter Naji for the business package. Coming up next now is Newspaper Review.
And let's welcome Bayo Tebi, our newspaper reviewer. And Bayo, it's good to see you again today.
Good morning, Kiria. Good morning, Kinsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
Good to see you.
Well, let's begin with the Punch newspaper. The Punch newspaper, above the name flag, we have review export proceeds policy. LCC tells CBN. That's on page 23. Total pension assets rose to 12.3 trillion naira in 2020, according to PENCOM. It's on page 21. And EFCC describes how Maynard's son fled to U.S. through Niger. It's on page 11. Then again, Senate summons NDDC over 6.25 billion naira palliative sharing. It's also on page 21. Now, the lead story on the Punch newspaper this morning is states differ as Zamfara, Gombe begin ranching. Oyo, Cross River, others oppose the project. There are about 5 riders to that story. Ruga settlements nearing completion, that's in Zamfara. Ranching set to take off, says Nasarawa. Cattle rearing is private business, says Oyo. No budget for ranching for now, says Ekiti. Ondo deploys a motorcade in forest reserves, ejects errant herders, seizes 5,000 cows. Now, the the larger photo story on the Punch newspaper this morning was the scenes of the fire incident at the Tipa Garage Market in Gwaremba, and that happened on Wednesday. Now, other stories below that, we have persistent attacks driving Borno residents to Yobe. It's on page 7. Persistent attacks driving Borno residents to Yobe, according to police. PDP, others oppose Buratai ex-service chief's nomination as ambassadors. That story can be found on page 11. And gunmen raid FCT community, kidnap Punch reporter, 2 others. So page 9. My ban because I worked against Ganduje in 2019, as according to Imam. Last story is on page 7. Then, suspected herdsmen burn Kogi school, timber contractor killed. It's on page 26. There is network of logistics supporting banditry, as according to El-Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State. There is network of logistics supporting banditry. It's on page 26. Very sensitive one, Kisley.
That's right, Kieran. Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. And above the nameplate, it says, How We Are Fighting COVID-19 by Kogi Government. You see pages, this one is in Roman figure 1 to 8. Actually, that's an advertisement, an 8-page advertisement taken out by the Kogi State government, lambasting the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 and stating its own position. But, Kieran, if you recall, we discussed coronavirus in Nigeria and what the issues are. Yes. And the incident manager here indicated that there are indeed fatalities involving persons from Kogi State, that some high-profile individuals who took ill came over to Abuja, where unfortunately some of them passed on. And that there's no cooperation from some of the medical practitioners.
How we are
fighting COVID-19 by Kogi government.
So at last, the government is now fighting COVID-19.
Well, that's...
it's curious, because apparently the impression created is that there's no COVID-19. If there's no COVID-19, why are you fighting a war against COVID-19?
Very pertinent question there, Bayo. Petrol price likely to rise with freight hike. Government and labor in talks. APC members registration legal, Buni replies Akonde. Maynard's son, Pfizer, flees to the U.S., EFCC tells court. And then below the nameplate, you have dividends there paid by NNG. And Borno revokes 6.7 billion naira road contract. That's page 27. Lead story, of course, is on the various conflicts involving herdsmen, bandits, and farmers, and indeed other citizens. Governors move to douse rising tension over herders. Uzodima, Bagudu, and Badaro meet with Ohaneze, Mietiala, and others. North herdsmen and El-Rufai caution against escalating violence. And then there is a quote there, excerpted from the story. We urge our representatives in the National Assembly to expedite action on constitutional amendments that would usher in state and community policing. As on the front page of The Punch, which Kieran earlier read, you can see the charred remains of the tipper market in Gwarimpa, Abuja, yesterday after the fire was put out. The incident occurred yesterday, Thursday. 6 dead, millions gone. And Kieran, you recall, our topic for conversation last Friday had to do with frequent market fires. Unfortunately, this is just one other incident. Now, 2023 elections, INEC plans new 57,023 polling units. Lawyers fault Buhari's extension of police IG Adamu's tenure. Oloni Shakin, Borotai, and others tipped as ambassadors. And Benway Pamsex take oath. That's on page 27. Bayo.
Thank you, Kinsley. Let's start with the issue relating to the police, whereby yesterday President Muhammad Buhari extended the tenure of Muhammad Adamu as the Inspector General of Police by 3 months. The Minister for Police Affairs, Megari Dingyadi, says the extension is to enable enough time to allow for a robust and efficient process of appointing a new Inspector General of Police. This is to fulfill the desire of the President for a smooth handover and to ensure that the right officer is appointed. The Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, enlisted in the force on 1st February 1986, and as at the 1st of February 2021, he had completed the mandatory 35 years of service. Already, a suit has been filed by some lawyers at an Abuja High Court to stop Muhammad Adamu from functioning further as Inspector General of Police. The appointment of the Inspector General of Police is constitutional. Section 215 of the Constitution requires that he be appointed by the President on the advice of the Nigerian Police Council. Section 2162 also requires that, stipulates that the appointment and removal of the Inspector General of Police shall be in consultation with the Nigerian Police Council. The last time the Police Council met was in May of last year. Meanwhile, In another development, the president has forwarded the names of the SY service chiefs who left office recently to the Senate president as non-career ambassadors designate. It is expected of the Senate to confine them in that position respectively. A letter to that effect sent to the Senate president was indicated by the special advisor to the president of media, Femi Adesina, and he says that it is done in consonance with Section 171 of the 1999 Constitution. There are anxieties about banditry that is dominating the safety and security of our nation. Governor Bello Mutawale of Zamfara State has been advised and told that bandits operating in Zamfara State are gradually turning into insurgents. Dr. Ahmed Gumi, who visited the stronghold of the bandits and appealed to them to accept peace, told the governor that the bandits got bad treatment from people of the state. The Islamic cleric who visited the stronghold says the attackers appealed to them to accept peace. He said it is. He said in the bandits and the Fulani camps I visited in Zamfara, I have come to understand that what is happening in the state is nothing but insurgency, adding that most of the bandits he came across are violent because the persistent attack and harassment from vigilante groups. He said some people are of the view that the bandits should be fought and killed, but majority of them are illiterates who need proper education and enlightenment. He appealed to governments at all levels to make peace with the bandits, stressing that dialogue is the only option to end the bandits. Now, who is a bandit? A bandit is a robber, one who is armed and attack travelers and run into forests and mountains. And who is insurgent? An insurgent is a rebellious troop, a rebel soldier who is rebelling against the state. So transition from banditry to insurgents is what the cleric is saying. But meanwhile, Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna says has decried the state of insecurity across the nation. He was addressing the Anglican primate who visited him in Kaduna. He said that it is not just the bandits, but there is a network of logistics supporting banditry. The informers, these are the people that supply them food and drugs. Bandits live in the forest, but their logistics and suppliers are people that live with us. It is these people that identify those to be kidnapped, and they target people in their homes. Governor El-Rufai says that northern governors have been consulted and have guaranteed that the safety of security of everyone living in northern Nigeria. He, however, appealed that there is freedom of expression. Some groups are meeting, but the moment they issue any threat to any Nigerian citizen, they will be arrested. He has called on all governments across the state to spare time for all to come together to end the menace of banditry so that there can be peace in the land. In the same development, the chairman of Northern Governors Forum and governor of Plateau State has also raised alarm that increased tension, especially when some ethnic groups are being attacked, especially headsmen in the southwest and southeast, is a matter of concern. He says that his counterpart, the chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, is already finding solution to it, but he called that there should be engagement to ensure that peace across the nation is restored.
Okay, well, there are a number of issues, but let's take a look at the letter by the President to the Senate seeking the clearance of his latest nominees for appointment as non-career ambassadors. And those nominees are the immediate past service chiefs. There are a few points to note, as I indicated. One is that envoys are the representative of the president in the receiving state or in the receiving countries. It is the president's prerogative to choose whomsoever he wishes as his ambassador in a different country. But it is also our constitutional requirement that those persons whom the president wishes to send out as his ambassadors, or ambassadors, of course, also representing the sovereign, are cleared by the Senate. So the Senate also has the powers to either clear or not clear. And the third one, which is also very critical,
is that the receiving state, in that case, if you say a country, but in international relations, you say a state, also has the prerogative to accept or decline. Yes. So it's not an automatic process to say once a person has been nominated as an ambassador, you are a nominee at the moment. If you get cleared by the Senate, you then become a designate, an ambassador designate, and once the agreement is exchanged and agreed upon, and the country to which you are going is properly identified, then of course you take on the rank of an ambassador to perform the functions and duties of an ambassador.
By which time your letters of credence have been accepted?
Of course, that's what it is, yes.
Well, it's a constitutional affair, and the president has, of course, carried that out. And on this note, Bayo, I would like to thank you immensely for your analysis this morning. I hope to see you again on Monday when we return with a fresh edition of Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
Well, thank you indeed. You are watching Good Morning Nigeria and on the network service of the NTA, where we have two key issues this morning. As we have informed you earlier on, we're going to play back the conversation we had with the Minister of Information and Culture, and that's on the program we had on Monday, or Wednesday rather, with respect to Transparency International report on Nigeria. And again, of course, the key issue this morning is on clinical depression and its management in Nigeria. Stay with us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support years by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
Dear customer, link your Airtel number to your national identification number today. Here are easy ways you can do it. Dial *121*1# on your Airtel line and follow the prompts on the screen. Type in your 11-digit government-approved NIN number. You will receive a confirmation message to confirm your entry. You can also visit www.airtel.com.ng/NIN to link your phone number to your NIN. If you do not know your NIN, simply dial *346# to get it. No stress, no wahala.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA. The counsel of our fathers.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Arsenal will seek revenge against Aston Villa after their loss to their opponents at the Emirates Stadium last time out. Will they succeed, or will Villa do the double over the Gunners this season? Find out this Saturday when Aston Villa welcome Arsenal to Villa Park on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Babai Jebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Goal.com.
We thank you for staying with us this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We mentioned earlier that we will be playing back the conversation we had on Good Morning Nigeria with the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, on Wednesday this week. And the conversation centered on Transparency International report on Nigeria. Take a look.
Let's get from the minister, his reaction to the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index 2020.
Yes, I think I issued a statement a few days ago in which I reiterated the fact that the low rating by the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index 2020 does not accurately reflect the strides the government has been making in its fight against corruption. I further say that the truth of the matter is that since the government received its the ITI 2019 report, the government had embarked on corruption preventive measures, and also building of integrity systems, and that the fight against corruption remains on course. Now, yes, it is true that by the rating that was released, it will appear as if Nigeria's fight against corruption has derailed, but far from it. Because what we found out from the report of TI in 2019 was that most of the indices that needed to be addressed were largely in the area of the ease of doing business and the general public service deliveries systems. We realized that over 40% of the scoring was actually based on the ease of doing business and general service deliveries. And that is why the PEBEC, which is the Presidential Ease of Doing Business Council, actually embarked on many reforms, especially at our ports. Now, many of these reforms we have embarked upon will begin to record, successes and show in the next couple of months. But it is important to understand that what the government has done is actually to put emphasis more on preventing corruption and building integrity systems. So it takes quite some time before you see the effect. And in addition to all this, even you can see that even the prosecution of high-profile suspects is still going on. And when you look further, despite the pandemic, the federal government has not rested on its oars in its effort to fight, corruption. You recall that recently, the ICPC actually launched this national ethics policy, which is actually aimed at national moral reorientation. And also the Code of Conduct Bureau also recently launched its own program to energize, the conduct and the conduct of public officers. These are things that have been going on very, very, gradually. And we also published the, national ports, the national ports program action, which has put in place the kind of reforms we want to put in our ports. Because you see, once we're able to address the issues that have to do with how easy is it for me to go to the ports to clear my goods, how easy is it for me to register my company at the CAC, then this is then that you begin to really address the issues of fighting corruption. Of course, we are studying the report because we found and we're interrogating some discrepancies and some indices. For instance, we noticed that we've remained stagnant for the last 10 years on some indices. And that is a bit worrisome because giving, when you say variables, it means they vary. When you look at the structure of government, the scope, it's either you move forward or you fluctuate or you decline. But we notice that some of these indices have remained the same, and we are interrogating why. We're also working very hard to improve on our data collection and data retrieval, because this also would help in giving a correct picture of what we'll be doing in the area of areas of fighting corruption. We're also concerned that we've received various assessments from various international and even local anti-corruption agencies, and sometimes you find out that while you are scored high by one agency on one particular index, you are scored low by another agency. So these are issues that we are addressing. But I'm very confident that I'm optimistic that if we continue with these reforms and we refuse to be distracted, we would do much better in the next couple of couple of months.
What are the issues on which Nigeria was scored low in the latest report?
It's largely in the area of ease of doing business, largely, and then also government bureaucracy.
Yeah, what are the specific issues about government bureaucracy? Because they keep talking about the fact that business, yes, the reforms that you've talked about and the reforms that we all see that are there, but that there are still obstacles in getting business done smoothly without the typical quid pro quo that you would find in some of the environments. And then there is also the issue with regard to procurement. I think that's one of the sore points. Has the government interrogated this to be sure that indeed what TI is drawing attention to isn't the reality, or that they are crying wolf?
No, you see, like I said, 40% of the scoring indices is actually around the area of, ease of doing business. That is why we have, the public has been working very hard on port reforms. It's working very hard on the issue of company registration and how you can get permits and grants that will help you in the area of doing business. Doing business. So if you look at the efforts of PEDEC in the last couple of years, 2 years, it is actually aimed at easing the bottlenecks in various areas, at the ports, customs, at the airports, and I think we are making a lot of progress.
Now, I think there is another area, Kingsley. TI is also advocating, serious evidence-based anti-corruption reforms in the police and other security agencies, including the military, right? Because they must have carried out some research at some level, to be able to come up with their findings, and they pointed to the fact that the issue of the police, the military, vis-a-vis the fight against Boko Haram and other security issues across the country.
You see, especially when we start talking about, the issue of the military, the issue of fighting Boko Haram, I think we must appreciate one thing. One, when we are fighting insurgency, the rules of engagement are not the same for you as they are for the insurgents. And you are fighting what you call an asymmetrical, war. Now, you are fighting not just the insurgents. You are at the same time trying to ensure that you keep to the internationally accepted rules of engagement. So in balancing both, it often comes out that the military is on the receiving end on both sides. But so far, I can assure you that our military is doing very well in being faithful to the rules of engagement, and their internal mechanisms for addressing excesses on the part of some erring soldiers. And I think we often hear of, court martials, we often hear of, very senior officers in the military being, disciplined either by, they lose their, by loss of ranks, or even sometimes by dismissals. I think what we need to do is we need to probably report more of this kind of activities. And that's why I say that we need to work more on our data keeping and retrieval, so that there will be no underreporting on the efforts that we have been making, internally. It's because if these facts do not get to the rating agencies, they will not know how much we have done. Look at the issue of the police. There have been a lot of reforms also going on within the police. Internally, I think we need to report this more so that the agencies, the rating agencies, will get to know what we've been doing.
I was just wondering, does the government have any issues with the methodology adopted by, say, Transparency International in framing its perception index?
Like I explained to you, for instance, I said we're interrogating certain indices used by the agencies. For instance, we noticed that on some indices, we've remained stagnant in the last 10 years, which is not possible, given that the population has increased, given that the size of government has increased, given that structures of government has increased. So we're even worried that I hope they're just not, transposing automatically what has happened in the previous years. But that could happen if there's no sufficient information on our own part too. This is why I still go back to the issue of looking at improving on our own data gathering and also retrieval, and overcome this under-reporting of the various efforts that the government is taking in fighting corruption. But I think our adoption of the corruption preventive system and building integrity system, I think, is the best, because what the ICPC has launched is a national ethics policy, a moral orientation, and they are starting from the schools. And the Code of Conduct Bureau also is facing the issue of how to re-energize and how to address the issue of the conduct of officers in the, in public service. While the PEBEC, the Presidential Enabling Business Council, is looking at how to bring reforms in the area of, ease of doing business. And when you do all this, then you see that, the future of the fight against corruption is very bright.
Kieran, I just want the Honorable Minister to also respond to this. Actually, what we're dealing with here, usually with the Transparency International report, is a matter of perception.
Exactly.
But there's also the mirror of perception and reality. That sometimes perception can mirror reality 80%, 75%, or 90%. Let's take a look at some of the critical areas that sometimes Nigerians themselves perceive that apparently not much has been done. You've spoken about the ease of doing business, and I'm sure anyone who has been operating in this environment would acknowledge that a great deal has been done in easing the obstacles that we used to have with regard to doing business. But let's take two critical agencies. This happened, for instance, in 2020. The police and the reforms. Yes, the police have been undergoing reforms, but how would you then contextualize the various revelations that have come out since the NSAS protest? Exactly. That is one. Two, on Good Morning Nigeria on Monday, that's 2 days ago, we were discussing the resurgence of foreign rice in our markets. You have been a guest with us on Good Morning Nigeria, where you have explored the fact that Nigeria had attained almost, as it were, self-sufficiency in rice production. And here we are, as soon as the borders have been reopened, now you are seeing rice all over the place. And the question people are asking is, who is in charge of policing our borders, of ensuring that contraband doesn't get into the market? So, this is not frame the perception of persons to say, look, if foreign rice comes in, of course, we had the customs PRO was our guest on that program. If bail remains for sale, largely amongst the police, if the brutality that was meted out by the now disbanded SARS was so widespread, according to the reports, then persons will say some of the reforms are not working. Ease of doing business, fantastic grading, no question about that. But for these other ones, what would be your reaction, Honorable Minister?
You see, my reaction to the issue of the revelations that have been coming up in respect of, especially at the Lagos panel of inquiry into the police brutality, actually supports the position of government that we are ready for reforms. We are open, we are transparent. It's because we want to correct the ills of the past. That is why we even allow these testimonies to be kept live for everybody to see it. It is a measure of the confidence that we have in our commitment to eradicate all forms of police brutality, all forms of, human rights abuse. That the federal government, set up these panels of inquiry in every state of the federation. Actually directed all,
states,
governors to do so. And this is why we are very surprised that Amnesty International, a few days ago, will come out and say the federal government is trying to cover up the death at the toll gate, and we challenge them. If Amnesty International has any proof of any brutality or any killings at the toll gate, they should please go to the third panel of inquiry, submit the names and addresses with concrete evidence that they were shot at that at the toll gate. Because, like I said earlier, like somewhere, I said the Amnesty International is becoming not just an irritant, but it's becoming a vehicle of disinformation. And it seems that they have a purpose, which is to destabilize Nigeria. Otherwise, why would they be outguessing the outcome of the panel? They've turned themselves into a panel of inquiry themselves, and they're making conclusions. Now, You see, and so that is my position on the issue of whatever revelation is coming out from the inquiry. It's because we're determined that we want this thing to be arrested, we want to examine them, we want to interrogate them. That is why we are making it public. Now, the issue of the rice thing, you see, it's a very interesting issue, very delicate. Why? When we closed our borders, because there was hue and cry, and I remember I was here, and I said that one of the major benefits of the border closure was to ensure that we have food security and food sufficiency, especially in rice, grains, and the like. That in addition, it will help us to curb the proliferation of small arms, which has fueled kidnapping and insurgency. But of course, against these two, you have to balance other larger and bigger interests. I think it's about time we start looking at the issue of our borders, smuggling, from a different perspective. And I think this is what the government is trying to do now, which is, you see, Kingsley, if you build your mansion in a slum, poor people will come there to steal your food. Hungry people will come there to disturb you. Now, you look at the situation of Nigeria today.
I hope you will give me land in an upscale area so I won't build a mansion.
Thank you. I'm quite Kingsley. You see what I'm looking at is that we have countries like the Benin Republic. We have countries like Niger. Niger is landlocked, so it's probably Burkina Faso. Then we have the Republic of Benin. The Republic of Benin makes its money from the ports. So here in Nigeria, we say rice is banned. Or you want to bring in foreign rice, you pay 70% duty. The Republic says pay 10%. Now, we can't force Benin Republic to ban importation of rice. How can we ask Benin Republic to charge the same tariff as we charge? And that is why we do engage some of these countries bilaterally and on an original basis. Now, you will notice that there's no problem between Canada and the US in the borders because both countries are prosperous. But it's the same thing. But look at the US and Mexico. So what I'm saying that as long as you have a prosperous country, and Nigeria are almost prosperous in terms of our potentials, in terms of our population, in terms of our resources, we are going to have this problem where smaller nations would take, would embark on policies that would be inimical to the interests of Nigeria. So we are working out on a long term an arrangement whereby, for example, if it's possible, for instance, we could go to the Republic and say, look, we'll give you $100 million a year. Stop, don't allow rice to come into Benin Republic. I mean, this is hypothetical. Mm-hmm. Now, what would that achieve? What the Republic will say, wait a minute. After all, the only reason why I allow rice to come is because I charge duty on them. So I calculate the duty I charge on rice in a year. It might not be up to 100, it might be more than $100 billion. But I look at the benefit I will get from Nigeria in other areas. So these are areas that we're looking at and working at. But it's complex and it's not unique to Nigeria. Anytime you have a rich nation has a boundary with poorer nations, you will see people running away from the poor nation to go to the rich nation. That's why you see all this migration. It's always from the poor country to the rich country.
Yeah, Honorable Minister, that's fine. You know, the point actually has to do with the role of government agencies, ultimately, and the perception of the role of those government agencies.
Kingsley, you see, Kingsley, we would not be being practicable. We have a very large border. Even, look, what prompted Trump, the former President Trump, said I was going to build a wall? That was prompted him. You see, that's what I'm looking. Don't look at the conventional solutions. Look at something that is a bit, you know, radical solution. Look, unless you know the cause of a disease, you cannot cure it. And this is what I've just told you now, is that the problem we have in Nigeria is that because of our population, because of our purchasing power, people will take risks to smuggle rice into Nigeria. Smaller countries like Benin, like I said, would look at it and say, we don't have petroleum, we don't have oil, we don't have anything. We only make our money from the ports. We don't care whether Nigeria wants rice band or not. We don't care whether Nigeria wants to, its local farmers to prosper. We need money. So we would say you can bring in rice at 10%. So if you know you can bring rice in at 10% to Benin Republic, and Nigeria will charge either 70 or 80, you look at the logistics of it, the businessmen on both sides, well, we take the risk. So that's why I said, let's look at a more radical approach to this, rather than the issue of, our customs is this. There's nowhere in the world that you don't have challenges at your boundary, as long as it's a boundary between a poor country and the poorer one. And that's why I use the example of Canada and Mexico, and Canada and the U.S. And after the example also of migration.
All right, thank you, Honorable Minister. I think instead of actually, talking about the capacity of our agencies, who are responsible for curbing, the menace of smuggling, on our borders, because if you look at the speed, by which this foreign rice, came in, almost how many months after we had the ban, we have unbanned, border closure, it came in quite it's like a big show, right? So that's it. But anyway, let me take you back.
You see, until and when you start doing things differently, you continue to get the same result. Why are we talking about introducing technology? Why is it into even our borders? Because we understand that the issue is enormous. And that's why I said, let's try to look at what the real problem is. You see, as far as the Republic is concerned, they don't want to hurt Nigeria deliberately, but they want to survive. So that is an area I think we should start looking at, rather than concentrate on the issues. Look, it's not. We didn't ask for the size of the Nigeria we have today, or the kind of borders we have, or the length that we have.
Let's now hope that in future that Nigeria may now, scale up on the issue of having the adequate technology to be able to man, the Nigerian border.
It's more than technology, Kiran.
Yeah, I just wonder, Honorable Minister.
It's more than technology. You see, honestly, and I just told you this. Let me tell you. I'll go and get a piece of land for Kingsley, as you said. But you can imagine if you build a mansion in a place where you are the only one, you have electricity, the only one that you have water, the only one that has elevation. Every other people around you will come to your house to come and watch it. If they are going to watch it through the window. No, let's start thinking differently. Thank you.
All right, I want to take you on. Sorry, I want to take him on this issue of COVID-19 because the chair of Transparency International actually was quoted to have said that COVID-19 is not just a health and economic crisis matter, but also corruption crisis. Corruption crisis. Perhaps what he's trying to say is that there's also corruption going on with respect to the fight against COVID-19. We have palliatives here and there, and some persons also argue that such palliatives did not go to the right direction, that some persons have also been cutting corners with palliatives in terms of materials and in terms of cash, which of course I know government made provision, for extra money, to some agencies and organizations who are in the fight against COVID-19. The TI is saying that some of these monies were not properly directed.
Well, that's an allegation. And frankly speaking, when it comes to COVID-19, I'm more worried about the huge disregard by Nigerians for the PTF COVID-19 protocols. I'm more worried by the spike in cases and the mortality rates. I'm more concerned about the scramble for vaccines. I'm more concerned about the hesitancy among people for the vaccine. I'm much more concerned about the fact that we are dealing with an existential issue. And this is, I think, where we should focus our attention. Let the anti-corruption agencies, let them look into areas of infraction or corruption or or misappropriation of funds in that area. But what Nigerians should address today is the fact that I think it's WHO, United Nations, said that 90% of all available vaccines today have been cornered by just 10 countries in the world. This is what should worry us. That Africa, with a population of about 1.3 billion people, we have only been able to secure 270 million doses of vaccine through AVAT, through the AU. That Nigeria today, with a population of over 200 million, so far we'll be able to secure from COVAX 20% of our population, about 41 million doses. And then through AVAT, we hope we get about another 42 million. So even in the next 2 years, with the best of luck, we'll only be able to vaccinate about 70% of our population. Now, as we speak today, we're expecting about 16 million doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca by February. Now, we are working very hard to ensure that the infrastructure is in place. And then we're hoping that we'll be able to tap on our experience, through the polio and other things, using the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency to ensure that this will be administered, properly. But if you know the cost to government today, COVID-19 is enormous. And you all know that workers under level 12 are either working from home or not coming to work, yet they are being paid. Most industries have, closed up or working at, skeleton. So, really,
Honorable Minister,
yes.
I'm sorry to jump in here because we have two topics today. The second one, of course, is on coronavirus.
Yes.
But still on the Transparency International report, which is the main reason why we have you. Well, as Minister of Information and Culture, you are Nigeria's Chief Public Relations Officer. You are Nigeria's Chief Spokesperson. You have defended Nigeria's position. You have explained what Nigeria is seeking to do. I just want to ask, are you also seeking to defend probably what is happening at the subnational levels in terms of perception, the stories in local governments, the stories in some states, and even the stories concerning procurement, where, for instance, there appears to be no evidence of competitive bidding in a number of public sector transactions, say at the subnational level? Are these matters not ones that we can begin to also work on? Because businessmen who are gunning for business will say, look, oh, we just saw the advert. When we got it, they said that it's a done deal. You can speak on behalf of the federal government, which you know very well, but as Nigeria as an entity, will you then also be making the same pitch of the fence for the subnational entities, particularly local governments that have become virtually a challenge to all of us?
You see, Kingsley, it's like when you are taking a bath. You start with the head, and it cascades down. The anti-corruption, as well as the corruption prevention measures were put in place. The integrity systems were put in place will cascade down. I spoke to you about the ease of doing business. I spoke to you about what the ICPC is doing. I spoke to you about the fact that the national ethics policy is even starting from primary schools and secondary schools. Now, that is going to have a holistic effect on the entire structure. Now, having said that, even at the PTF COVID-19 level, which I'm privileged to be a member, we engage with the Governors Forum, we engage with the National Economic Council on issues that have to do with how to ensure that the COVID-19 in terms of protocols, in terms of the distribution of materials, done in a manner that it will be equitable. Now, when you have a national orientation, it is going to go to every level. I will speak for what the federal government is doing to ensure that we have a country where corruption, if it cannot be eradicated, will be fought to a standstill. And I've told you also the efforts. You see, our emphasis today is not like before. We believe that emphasis should be on prevention, should be on building integrity systems, and we're engaging all the subnationals at this level.
Well, Mr. Thank you very much indeed, for your explanations. But I think that last question actually is quite huge, in the sense that the subnationals actually, under normal circumstances, it takes time for the federal government, policies to cascade down, to the subnationals. As governors, of course, are the kings of their states, and of course, as you speak, that many states don't have local government system as it were. What I have is just administrators, right? And of course, what goes on there perhaps is not known either constitutionally or otherwise, right? But they've done so well, trying to explain themselves.
Kiran, you see, it's not about Kiran. It's not about me trying to just give this, a sweet talk. Look, remember. And I want to thank NTA for this. You still run our program, Change Begins With Me. This Change Begins With Me is one of the most powerful programs the government has, and I just hope that we can get more sponsors, because it talks to everybody. It talks to the driver. It talks to the mechanic. It talks to the clerk. You see, when you talk about corruption in Nigeria, it's not just in government. And this is why this, moral orientation, ethical orientation is very important, and we'll continue to drive it.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. The program now continues with our topic for today, which is on managing clinical depression in the country. And of course, we have guests who are joining us from our Ibadan and Kodi network centers, as well as here in the Abuja studios. From our Ibadan studio, we have the founder and CEO of Acido Foundation, Dr. Jibril Abdul Malik. He's a psychiatrist. Dr. Abdul Malik, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, and also here with us in the Abuja studios, we'd like to welcome Chinyere Udensi, who's a clinical psychologist. Chinyere, pleasure to have you with us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, and Kirian, we have another guest with us. Yes.
Yes, so we have joining us here in Abuja is, well, of course, to mention Chinyere Udensi, who is here with us. And then from our Makurdi studio is Dr. Matthias Oyigeya. Matthias Oyigeya is the former Chief Medical Director, Federal Medical Center, Makurdi, Benue State. He is a consultant psychiatrist. It's a pleasure to have you this morning on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here too.
So let's begin the conversation by going over to our Ibadan Network Center, where we are introduce Dr. Jibril Abdul Malik. Dr. Abdul Malik, just for the benefit of our viewers, what is depression and how common is it in our country?
Thank you very much, and good morning, Nigerians. Depression is a mood disorder. And let me start by saying that all of us as human beings, we have emotions. We think, we have memory, and so on. So our emotions, our mood, is never a straight line. It's something that fluctuates up and down for everybody. The only person that will have a straight line emotion will probably be a robot, not a human being. But these fluctuations, we all have good days, bad days. But these fluctuations usually is narrow. It's not something that, it doesn't fluctuate widely. We talk about abnormalities of mood. When your mood is very low, that's severity. So you feel extreme emotional pain, overwhelming feelings of sadness, and a host of other symptoms. That is one, there is severity. The second is that these symptoms that are so severe last for a long time, continuously. So it's not just good day, bad day. It's there consistently for a minimum of 2 weeks. And the third criteria that distinguishes normal fluctuation from clinical depression is that these symptoms that are severe, that are lasting for a long time, also affect your ability to function in your day-to-day life, at work, with your family, in your social interactions. So it impairs your ability to function normally. The other symptoms that you see in depression, apart from the overwhelming feelings of sadness, is feeling of tiredness, lack of motivation, difficulties with sleep, poor appetite, maybe feeling guilty for things they are not directly responsible for, and maybe having ideas about harming themselves, which we call suicidal thoughts, or crying for no reason, not having any interest at all, lack of motivation, having difficulties paying attention or concentrating. So you find that this long list, and there are more, are things that can occur to you and I, to many people at some point. What makes it different in clinical depression is that you have at least 5 of these symptoms occurring together at a severe level, and then lasting continuously for a long time, more than 2 weeks continuously, and affecting your ability to function in your day-to-day functioning. To end my response, depression is the commonest mental health problem globally. The World Health Organization estimates that about 350 million people at any point in time will be suffering from depression. That's double Nigeria's entire population. In Nigeria, it's also very common. And so since we know it's the commonest mental health problem, which may also be referred to as a silent killer, because I can be well-dressed and sitting in the studio and talking this way and be depressed. It's not written on the forehead. As against other types of mental health problems that even from the dressing and appearance, you will know something is not really right. So that's why we call depression the silent killer. So it's a very common problem globally as well as in Nigeria. It's the commonest mental health problem. Thank you.
All right, thank you indeed for your opening comment. We shall get back to you as we make progress in this conversation. Now, let's go to Benue State, where we have the Chief Medical Director, Federal Medical Center in Makurdi. Now, does someone's biology or genetic inheritance put him or her at a greater risk of being depressed?
Depression sometimes can be said to be familiar. Some other times it's said to be genetic. But what is obvious is that right from time, when people observed that people have depression, they are looking at endogenous. That is something coming from within. They could not find any good reason around the person that could make the person depressed. And then they classified depression at that time also could be exogenous. That is some events around the person that could have provoked the person feeling so low. And so studies have been done, and it has been confirmed that there is genetic component to depression. But then, those genetic problems are still undergoing studies. And there is no doubt at all. What we know, the epigenetic effects are more. That is the environmental effects on the person and how the thing had graduated into throwing the person into that kind of bad mood. And like Abdul Malik said, the bad mood will have to be sustained every day for a minimum of 2 weeks. So we have both the genetic component and also the external component, which is mainly epigenetic. And also the happenings around us that we may not have picked from our parents, which is purely exogenous. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Matthias Oyugeya. We'll come back to you in the course of the conversation. Let's now come to the Abuja studios with clinical psychologist Chinyere Udensi. Chinyere, tell us, clinical depression, what triggers it?
So many things can trigger clinical depression, like we've heard the other speakers talk about. There is the biological component to it, and then there is the environmental component. The environmental component, you find it to be one of the biggest contributing factor. So people can go through severe loss, severe traumatic experiences, and that could be a trigger for it. Financial struggles, emotional struggles, things like bullying at school, and when they lose their jobs. So when people go through severe emotional trauma or emotional pain, it can lead them down a path of depression. Also, when people are struggling to perhaps do the things that they find that people in their circle are doing, and they may feel that they're not capable, that could lead them down a path of feeling like they have having a low mood and perhaps eliciting depression. So anything actually could be a triggering factor for most people to experience depression.
Now, how do we differentiate between feeling sad or feeling blue or unhappy from clinical depression?
Yeah. So everybody has those moments that we feel down. We all have the moments where we feel sad, and we all have the moments where we just don't want to do anything and we just don't feel like talking to anybody. But the difference between the everyday mood of sadness and clinical depression is the severity and intensity. When it comes to that one, you find that it begins to affect the person's ability to function every day. It begins to affect your ability to go to school, to keep your relationships, to go to work. You might find that you're not even concentrating at work. You don't just want to do anything. And And because it can last for up to 2 weeks, that's quite a big chunk of someone's monthly activity. The severity can make you just not want to do anything. And for some people, 2 weeks is even just a little bit. It can go for as long as a month. So we use 2 weeks as a benchmark to see, to actually measure the intensity and severity. But when you begin to find that it's affecting your ability to function, to carry out your daily activities, to do the things that you usually do, then we can begin to say we can look into diagnosing the person. And that's the sharp difference between everyday feeling sad and a clinical depression.
Okay. Thank you, Chinyere. Let's return to Dr. Jibril Abdul Malik in our Ibadan Network Center. Dr. Abdul Malik, who is susceptible to clinical depression? And is there necessarily a dichotomy between the sexes and who is more likely to get depressed?
Right. Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that everybody can be depressed. The same way everybody can be involved in a road traffic accident. There is no human being that can beat his or her chest and say that they are immune to suffering from depression. Indeed, some people usually have the erroneous impression that it is only those to whom something bad has happened to that should become depressed. But that's not true. You find people who apparently outwardly appear very successful and they still suffer from depression. We've had international journalists like Anthony Bourdain of CNN suffer from depression and eventually end his life via suicide. We've had entertainers like Robin Williams, who made other people laugh, himself suffer from depression. So it's not only when bad things happen or when you are suffering or you lose your job. Of course, that is a stressor that may increase your risk of suffering from depression. But the bottom line is that everybody can suffer from depression regardless of your socioeconomic status, your level of education, whether you are married or you are single, whether you are gainfully employed or not employed. Anybody can suffer from depression. However, we know that some risk factors increase the vulnerability of some people towards developing depression. And one of those risk factors is what you mentioned, gender. What we know for depression is that it is twice as common among females as it is in males. So females are more at risk of developing depression as compared to males. But that's not to say that males do not also get depressed, just that the prevalence is higher in females compared to males. Okay, so that's one. The second is that a family history of depression, and I would like to quickly add here that when we say family history, it's not an automatic thing that once, for instance, both my parents had depression, I will automatically have depression. No, it's just a risk factor, similar to hypertension and diabetes. If your parents have hypertension and diabetes, what it means is that you are at higher risk of developing it. But you can live up to 100 and not become hypertensive or become diabetic if you watch your diet, you exercise, and so on. So depression is similar, that when there is a family history, it means your risk is higher than the average person who does not have family history. But that's not to say that automatically you will develop depression. The other things that increase the risk of depression is having a lot of stressors, negative life events, losing financial losses, loss of loved ones, and so on. So when you have a cluster of many risk factors and you have a risk, familiar risk to it, then your chances will be higher than the other person. But anybody can develop depression. Thank you.
All right, thank you indeed. And back to Dr. Matthias Oyige. Let me ask you this. What ideas are on the horizon for a better and effective ways to treat depression, especially clinical depression?
There are so many ways to treat clinical depression, but once somebody is depressed, confirmed depressed, we first of all stabilize the person because it has to do with mood. So hospitalization or hospital treatment is the first thing. and that is using drugs for treatment of depression. When a person comes up, you can now go into the areas of psychological treatment. Depending on the aspects the person was most affected, you decide on the pattern of treatment. For example, children, that may have affected their cognitive senses. That is the ability to read, to be in school and concentrate. Then cognitive therapy will be given to such a person, both by the psychiatrist and also the psychologist. If the family dynamics are problems to the child or to the individual, maybe wife or husband, then family therapy will have to come in there. And also, if the person is having issues at work with colleagues or other relations at home, maybe husband relations or wife relations, then we talk about interpersonal therapy. And if the depression, going back again to hospital therapy, the depression is so much that the person cannot even take drugs, because a lot of them may be so bad that they wouldn't take even tablets. At that time, electroconvulsive therapy may be considered to bring the person back to good mood before any other therapy can start. So there are so many ways you can handle clinical depression, but it's individualized. As individuals come in, you assess the person, you rate the person, and then, based on clinical acumen and extant principles, you can decide to take up the person along a line of treatment. I think that's just a highlight to how somebody with clinical depression can be treated. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Matthias. And let me return very quickly again to Dr. Abdul Malik before we come back to Chinyere here in the Abuja studios. Dr. Abdul Malik, I recall that we've had you on several occasions on Good Morning Nigeria discussing issues around mental health, suicide, and so on and so forth. Now you have indicated that depression is one of the commonest public health problems. In Nigeria, do we accord this recognition of a mental health, a public health issue? And if we do, what are the indicators that indeed we are well on the path to dealing with it, either through curative or other therapeutic measures?
Thank you very much. I would like to state that we are not according, not just depression, mental health issues generally, we are not according it the right priority in Nigeria. When we have episodic flare-ups, for instance, there was the codeine issue in Kano some time ago with a BBC documentary, and suddenly there was a task force on drug abuse and all of that, and after that it all fizzled out. Mental health should be given priority because the WHO's definition of health is complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So health is three things: physical health, mental health, and social well-being. So what that means is that mental health is like 1/3 of health generally. But what we find is that even the societal awareness around mental health issues, most people still think that it's a spiritual problem and so on. And that's why what we do, for instance, at the Asidor Foundation is to promote awareness, reduce shame and stigma, and encourage people to come forward for treatment. But that's just advocacy and public awareness. On the part of the government, there needs to be a strategic plan. There is a mental health policy, but that is poorly implemented. It was first developed in 1991. It was revised in 2013, but there is no plan accompanying it. You need an implementation plan. That's one. The mental health laws that we are using in Nigeria is still the Lunacy Act of 1958. It's a shame and a source of embarrassment. However, we have a proactive Senate Committee on Health as well as the National House Committee on Health. The Senate Committee Chairman, Senator Dr. Olori Egbe, has been pushing a revised mental health bill that will accord mental health its right position of recognition and governmental attention so that we are not operating an obsolete law. So there are a lot of things. And in terms of manpower, we are also grossly deficient. We have just about 300 psychiatrists in the country. We have even fewer clinical psychologists working in government institutions in terms of teaching hospitals, psychiatric hospitals. So we have a gross acute shortage of manpower to address the fact that mental health problems are rising globally as well as in Nigeria. We are increasingly seeing a lot of suicide deaths. Okay, so we need to do much more. We need to realize that this is a public health emergency. So this should be a wake-up call. So I'm really delighted that you asked this question, and I hope that NTA and other media will focus attention and help prompt the government to pay adequate attention to 1/3 of the health of our citizens, which is mental health. Thank you.
Yeah, but this is a very good information he just gave, respect to mental illness in Nigeria and the way mental illness is graded in this country with respect to also the way and manner it's graduated for Nigeria to pay attention to what you refer to as a 1/3 of health issues in Nigeria. Now back to Chinyere. Chinyere, now there is psychological intervention and there is antidepressant treatment for depression. Which one would you subscribe to? Or do you have to evaluate a depressed person to determine which aspect of treatment would be administered?
Yeah. So the treatment for depression is first of all individualized. There really isn't any general treatment form. But we know that there's a psychotherapy, which is the talk therapy with a psychologist or a counselor, and then we have the medication aspect to it. So how do we go about deciding who gets what? It all stems down to assessment. So the individual, when you talk to the individual and you realize perhaps the severity or the intensity of their diagnosis, you can now decide the approach to go with. My approach as a psychologist is purely talk therapy. I don't dispense medication. So what I would do is, if I have a client who comes and they're quite clinically depressed, I would now refer to a psychiatrist who I will partner with and have a combined care. So generally the treatment can be therapy and medication, or just therapy, or just medication and then therapy. So it depends on the person and what they're presenting with.
Now, sorry, Christine, what is the response benefit for either treatment or psychological approach?
So it depends on what the person is coming with. If somebody is clinically depressed and when they're clinically depressed, they can't really function properly. So that's not even the best time to talk to them about anything. So then you will start with medication. So they begin to respond and you're able to start to talk to them to address the problem. So again, it now depends on what the person is coming with but we know that a combination care or this or that does have a good effect on the person if they're getting the right treatment.
Okay, Chinyere, thank you very much. Dr. Matthias, once again in Makurdi Network Center, tell us, what options are available for care and treatment of an individual who is clinically depressed? Can there be self-help? I mean, if you know what the triggers are and the individual is capable of talking himself or herself out of the state, can that help? Can that work? What is the role of the family, of next neighbors? And then what will be the role of the specialists? Just as Chinyere was trying to explain, but more particularly, what is the role of the individual first as a response to the clinical depression?
In all mental health issues, the treatment is based on a tripod of the patient, the hospital of which the doctor represents, and the support system. The hospital is there to receive the patient, do assessment, and then prescribe the right treatment for the person to come out of the bad mood. After doing that, it's expected, based on history, that you bring other people into the treatment menu. The family must be there if the person has family, because the person needs support at the end of the treatment. There, I talked earlier about interpersonal therapy. I talked about family therapy. All this, based on history, you may need to bring in the family in the psychotherapy session. You may need to bring some of the peers or colleagues in the office into the therapy. Then, the individual himself must comply with instructions on how to take the drugs, on what to do, so that the person will not go back to the same state. So, if any of these arms fails, the treatment will fail. The patient does not comply with treatment, the depression will come back. If the patient complies with treatment, but the family or the support system fails, the person will not get the kind of support that should sustain the person in the right mood. If the hospital is not paying good attention to the patient, but the support system is strong, the patient is willing, but whenever the person comes to hospital, is not getting enough attention, is not getting enough encouragement, then the treatment will fail. So essentially, the treatment rests on a tripod of the hospital, the support system, and the individual having the illness. The three must work together. Like the psychologist said, sometimes she will work with the doctor. While the doctor is giving drugs, she's also giving the psychotherapy. That is how it should be. All hands must be on deck, positively, to put the person continuously in the right mood. Thank you.
Well, Dr. Mataso Oyigaya, we're going to take a short break now. When we come back, the conversation continues.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
A new edition of TV Guide is out with special focus on the game changer, His Excellency Governor Abdullahi Sule of Nasarawa State. Broadcasting in a digital economy, Maxwell Logo gives an insight. This edition also features Nancy Naji of AIT, a name synonymous with business. Meet the NCDC boss, Dr. Chikwe Ihekweazu. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, also x-rays the relevance of social media in the modern society. Meet some TV professionals who have impacted their spaces and other inspiring stories in sports, entertainment, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendor near you or NTA stations nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
Dialogue, empathy,
love, and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
Arsenal will seek revenge against Aston Villa after their loss to their opponents at the Emirates Stadium last time out. Will they succeed, or will Villa do the double over the Gunners this season? Find out this Saturday when Aston Villa welcome Arsenal to Villa Park on the Premier League Live, showing on the NTA network from 1 p.m. The Premier League Live is brought to you by Axis Bank, Babai Jebu, Lipton, and Close Up, in association with Go.com.
All right, I said good morning, Nigeria, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. I want to return to Chinyere Udensi on the role that the individual can play in dealing with clinical depression. Dr. Matthias was talking about, yes, the patient has a role, the family has a role, and then the hospital or the healthcare professionals also have a role. I'm just talking about the individual who is self-aware. What role can that individual play, and how can that individual tap into the communal system that we have, the support system, either the family or associations by way of churches or mosques or clubs. But what can the individual do for self once there are indications of a depressive state?
A lot of the times, what we do is that we encourage self-care. Self-care, 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 and that encapsulates a lot of the things that we can do. The big word there is awareness, understanding that, okay, these are the things I go through, I'm feeling this way for quite a number of time, or I'm struggling. What you can do, one of the first things that I like to encourage my clients to do when they come is, first of all, identify your triggers. If you're able to know the things that perhaps take you down a path or make you feel a certain way, identify it. If you need support with walking through those triggers, then you get the support either from your family, from the therapist, from the people that you love the most that you are able to support you. So identify the things that cause you to feel sad or make you feel a certain way, and look into them. Another thing that you can do is, with depression, what it does is that it holds you back. It changes your mood. It makes you not want to interact with the people around you. I encourage my clients to do the opposite of how you feel. If you feel sad, just try and get up as much as you can. If you feel that you don't want to go anywhere, just get up and go out. Just don't sit alone. Don't isolate yourself, which is what depression makes people do. Don't get into those habits, because sometimes there's a cognitive part and there's a behavioral part of mental health challenges. So the behavioral part will encourage you to get up and do. And then the cognitive part now gets you to start to think different about a situation that would help you address it. Your support system goes a long way. I want to encourage everybody. Part of self-care is tapping into your support system to help you during your low moments, during the times that you're unable to support yourself. Healthy living, lifestyle changes, incorporating exercise, incorporating medication and meditation, some form of yoga. All these things have a history of helping you lift your mood and making you feel better. A lot of people like to do affirmations. It helps a lot of the times to use affirmations to help yourself. And then, there's so much resources out there that you can go into. Look for a hobby. Find something that you want to do that will make you feel better. Incorporate new things into your life so that you're not allowing that sad feeling or that sad mood hold you back. And if you have done all these things and you're finding that you're still not feeling any better, then please speak to the nearest mental health practitioner, your psychologist, your psychiatrist, that would help you perhaps chart a more structured path to helping you get into a better headspace.
All right, I wish you have time, for us to deliberate on this much more than this. But let's get to Dr. Jibrin Abdul Malik. Maybe you have to speak to this. Self-help effort of a depressed person. How much can a depressed person do to to help him or herself out of depression? Chinyere has given us a dossier of what could be done. Perhaps you may have to come from another perspective.
Thank you very much. I think in addition to what Chinyere has excellently explained, is perhaps for the individual to also know when the threshold at which point they need to seek for help. And not just the individual alone, those of us, the social circle, there have been research studies globally that have shown that simply having someone check in with you, oh, how are you? I've not seen you in a long time. I just said I should drop in to check on you. Without even formal therapy training, having people check on your well-being, show an interest in your well-being is helpful to improve your mood, exercise, and so on. But the addition I will add, so I don't repeat what Chinyere has already excellently explained, is that if you are doing all of these things and you are still not feeling an improvement in your mood, you are still feeling low, you are still going through a lot of emotional pain, that is the threshold for you to know that you need professional help at that time. And that professional help, you can get it from the mental health professionals. So that's very important. And again, it's very important for the individual to also appreciate that depression sometimes is chronic. It lasts for a long time. It's not like malaria that's for 1 week or a few days and it's gone. Some individuals tend to have what we call recurrent depression. So they go through depression, they come out of it, and then months down the line, a year down the line, the symptoms resurface again. So they need to also be aware of the fact that sometimes it can have this cyclical nature or recurrent nature. And so they need to identify early and then ensure that they put measures in place to lift their mood. They have hobbies that improve them. They have a social support network to lift them up when they are feeling a bit low. All of these are very helpful for the individual.
I was just wondering, Dr. Abdul Malik, very quickly, still on self-help, what is the limit to escape? I know that, alcoholism, of course, poses its own dangers. Somebody is seeking to help himself could say, look, I go watch a movie, I go to the stadium to watch a soccer match, I read a book, and all that. Might all of this also help the person get out of a depressive state?
Right. Exercise, enjoying hobbies are helpful. But just as you rightly mentioned, we are wary of turning to unhelpful escape routes. Some individuals, in fact, in our clinical experience, even among young people, what we find, especially among adolescent men, boys, and young men, is that when they present with drug abuse, if you then probe into how did you start, why did you start, you tend to find that at the bottom, underlying issue was that they were feeling very low about themselves. They had low self-esteem. They were going through a depressive phase. They didn't identify it. And then they started self-medicating, taking drugs to make them feel high, to lift their mood, and make themselves feel good about themselves and life generally. And it then led to addiction. So the primary problem that started, which was missed, was depression. And they were only using the drug abuse to try and get out of the depression, thereby creating another entirely big problem for themselves, which is drug addiction. So we don't want you to self-console with drugs, with alcohol, with cannabis, with medications generally. That is not helpful. That is leading into another cul-de-sac entirely, so that's not helpful. But things like exercise, watching movies, reading books, playing games, those are very helpful ways to try and improve your mood. Visiting friends, people that you know will make you happy, all of those are very helpful. Thank you.
All right, and thank you indeed, Dr. Jibril Abdul Malik, for your contribution this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. You are the founder and CEO at CIDO Foundation. Thank you indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. And of course, here in the studio, we have Chinyere Udensi, clinical psychologist, NIM Foundation. Thank you, Chinyere.
Thank you for having me.
Coming. And of course, Dr. Matthias Oyigea, former Chief Medical Director, Federal Medical Center, Makurdi, Benue State. He is also a consultant psychiatrist. Thank you for coming this morning on our show.
All right, just before we go, if we still have enough time, we'll take sports. Okay, well, it looks like the director is indicating that we are pressed for time. Well, thank you for tuning in today on Good Morning Nigeria. The program returns on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, enjoy your weekend, but remember to stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Kirian Umayo. Have a good weekend.
NTA, you can't beat the rich.
Although social media as a channel of communication is inherently harmless, it becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
Is inherently harmless. It becomes harmful and damaging when used without discretion and thoughtfulness. Bad social media users spread rumors and fake news without verification. But good social media users stop, reflect, and verify information before sharing it. Be a good social media user. Stop the spread of fake news. Verify the authenticity of your source and use social media responsibly for a better Nigeria. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency.
Akili, 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 akili. Will you wash your hands with me?
wash your hands in clean water. Wash your hands, wet them with the water. Wash your hands, now add some soap. Scrub your hands in the soap and water. Scrub above and below between the fingers too. Scrub under your nails and scrub a dub-a-doo. Rinse your hands in water. Rinse them clean, rinse away the soap. Dry your hands and go.
Akili, why do we wash our hands?
To wash away the germs.
Akili, what are germs?
They're like tiny little bugs on your hands, and they can make you sick.
I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing it from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing it from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing it from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but I'll take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but I'll take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but I'll take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from. But take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says, I really like this conversation because we are struggling with this in our community today. That is from Joshua. Joshua Elisha. I don't know where you're writing from, but take the next one. Hello, good morning. A friend of mine is in a relationship where her spouse, she and her spouse are both AS, and she feels like the marriage can work with faith and hoped that there will be no issues. And at the same time, she is confused and scared. Please, what can she do in this case? She says it's a relationship. Both of them are AS. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's possible if they are going to get married, it's advisable they decide to endure the hurt to avoid the pain tomorrow. If they want to take the risk, it's very possible that first two might be AS or AA, but the third and fourth, the likelihood of having an SS child is very high.
It's very high.
Because I give myself as an example. I got into a similar kind of situation, risked it, and had two beautiful kids who are AS and AA. And I told my wife then that I'm no longer interested to go further, because if you take the risk further, you might just get into it. So they can.
Says,